Good evening, and welcome to our Blue Christmas service. Our service intended for all who are grieving the loss of loved ones, grieving the times we find ourselves in, or just struggling to get into the joy of the season. Lament is a powerful tool that our faith tradition gives us. The ability to cry out, to release our pain, our anguish, knowing that we are supported in it by our God and by our community, and trusting that it will lead to a new door opening, to new life, to new joys, to the next chapter on our journey. I invite you now to join in our call to worship. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From where is my help to come? Help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot be moved, and the one who watches over you will not fall asleep. Behold, who keeps watch over Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord himself watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand, so that the sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. It is he who shall keep you safe. The Lord shall watch over your going out and your coming in, from this time forth forevermore. Amen. Please join in our opening prayer. Jesus, you commanded waves to be still and calmed a stormy sea. Quiet our restless hearts that they may find rest in you. We recognize the noise inside us and noises around us. We acknowledge them, but we seek here to know your presence in the midst of all that might distract us. So now we surrender for these moments our hearts, knowing that beneath the silence is a deeper word, and that even when we say nothing, you are still listening. Amen. Our first hymn of this service is Come, O Come, Emmanuel. Please join or listen as you feel called.
O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile be, until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come
Please join in our litany of lament. How long, O Lord, will you ignore me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long will I have cares on my mind, grief in my heart all day? Look at me. Answer me, O Lord, my God. Restore the luster to my eyes. Comfort me, O God. But I trust in your faithfulness. My heart will exult in your deliverance. I will sing to the Lord who has been good to me. Comfort me, O God. Amen.
A really good introductory Enneagram course is taught based on the negative aspects of who you are and how you manage life. And people often say, it's so negative. And it gets really better after you know where you fit in all of that. But my response to it's so negative is maybe sad, but I think it's true. And my response is, we don't know ourselves by what we get right. We actually know ourselves by what we get wrong. And we for sure know our internal terrain by what we get wrong. So all this prevention of getting things wrong and making mistakes and, you know, who knows what the good half of Instagram is going to be. We don't, but I'm counting on my kids and grandkids to figure it out. And the fact that I can't figure it out doesn't mean it's not there. It means that it's not my generation's work. And I think there's value in understanding your age in relation to other people and the ages that they are. You know, I want to grow old gracefully. I don't, whoever said 60's the new 40 isn't 60. Like, it's not the new 40, nor do I want it to be. I want it to be 60. And I'm 68 and I want to be 70. And I want to live my life in response to everything and everybody around me from that place. Not from a trendy, sexy, relevant. How would I be relevant to a 25-year-old if I'm not me? And what are we losing in worship when it has to be relevant? What are we losing in understanding the mystics when it has to be the opposite of relevant? What are we losing when we fix ourselves up to be somebody we're not, to pretend to be somebody we're not? And what a surprise death is going to be for people who are pretending they're not aging.
Did you say we're going to die? What? We don't get out of here alive, Suzanne?
Yeah, no, it's coming.
God.
It's coming, and you know how you embrace it, I think? By allowing the reality of little parts of yourself dying along the way. And I think you learn to do that by learning to die to yourself in your 40s, or 30s or 20s. So if there's anything I have to say about the ways I'm dying now, it would be to say, I haven't learned anything important from any success that I've ever had. All the things I know that I want my children to know, I learned from failure and loss and grieving. But people don't know how to grieve anymore because somehow we've covered over death as if it's kind of sterile and pretty. And so I have a whole thing about grieving and what it's costing us that we don't know how to grieve. And I'm pretty pointed when I'm teaching clergy about, I'm glad that you feel trained to help us through our cycles of grief, but there aren't going to be any because we've been protected from death to the point that we can't grieve anymore. And I just was in the Northwest this last week, and I did a number of events. My husband Joe and I did some Enneagram work, and he taught spiritual practices in relationship to your Enneagram number. And I did a big 2-day thing on relationships in the Enneagram. And the last day, I worked with parents of adopted and foster children. And I did that because I'm adopted. And in the process of that, my son taught me something that I've taught him. And at a break, he said, "You know, Mom, I'm not sure, but you might want to talk about this." And that is, you might want to talk about grieving the child that you don't have so that you can accept and love the child that you do have. And I've talked to my kids about that a lot, but it somehow left me. But because I had handed that piece of wisdom off, he had it to bring back and give back to me and say, this might be important. And I'm in a room with people who have adopted children, and it, in some cases, isn't anything what they thought it would be. And they have children who have problems they had no idea they had. And in order for them to continue to be generous and make space and grace and parent those children, they have to grieve the loss of the dream of what they thought that was going to be. And children who come out of foster care have to be taught to grieve the loss of the dream that they thought life was going to be if they just weren't in foster care, right? And we don't know how to grieve, and it's not taught by very many people. So I'm doing a lot of work around that.
descension seems like losing. I thought we're supposed to ascend.
Well, I don't know how you ascend if you don't have a place to ascend from. There's no such thing as ascending and ascending and ascending and ascending. So, Richard Rohr teaches that we don't need to have a new pattern. There's only one, he says. And that pattern is the Paschal mystery. As Christians, we know that means living and dying and rising. I'm sure other faith beliefs have the exact same pattern, and I just don't know the exact language for that. And so I suspect that we oversimplified maybe years ago living, dying, and rising, and kind of made up that you do each one of those things one time. And living, dying, and rising is all day, every day. And there are whole denominations in Christian understanding who only want to focus on rising, and whole denominations who only want to focus on dying, and some who say, in terms of prosperity gospel understanding, that you don't have to die. And I can't find that anywhere. And it's certainly not true in my life. And so the greatest sadness of my life has come when I refused to let go of something that had served its time or its reason or its purpose, and been faithful enough to wait for what's next. And maybe age teaches you that. But if you don't know to watch for that because an older person told you their story, then seems like you might miss it in a culture that says you can have it all.
How do you learn to die so you can live?
Well, 2 words that we don't use much: allowing and letting go. And I don't ever hear the word allow in our culture, except when people say, you're not allowed to do that. And you and I talked a little bit earlier about the fact that if you don't allow the next thing that God's calling you to, well, then you're going to miss it, because God isn't going to make you do it. I do.
If he loved us, wouldn't he just set it up so it's all dialed in?
No, because he loves us. I spent 40 years asking theologians I respect. I keep saying to them over and over, now tell me again about free choice. Tell me again about why we have free choice. Seems like we're messing stuff up. Tell me again why we have free choice. And it's because if you're not free to say no, you're not free to say yes. But the illusion in the West that we're in control of everything is such a thin veil for anybody who wants to look beyond it. It's so obvious that we're not in control. All you have to do is take a 2-year-old to the grocery store to know that you're not in control. I'm really blessed. My parents adopted me. My dad delivered me. And they were older and they were highly evolved. And my dad was a doc and my mom was a nurse, but I watched both of them let go of living as we understand it so gracefully.
How did they do that?
Well,
you remember something what was it that
the thing
about their letting go?
The thing I just thought of was I adored my dad, and when he was dying, I was kind of draped over him. He died with congestive heart failure, and he was a doctor, so he knew exactly what was happening. And he hadn't talked in about 3 days, and he had a raspy voice from all the fluids. And I had chosen to be the one who stayed with him one night, and I was literally kind of laying on top of him from a chair. And I was crying, and I said, please don't leave me here. And he said, I have to. But I wouldn't if you didn't have Joe. It was him teaching me that life is set up so that I'm leaving, but it's okay, you have Joe. And Joe keeps saying, when I say, don't leave me here, he keeps saying, if I do, you have the kids. It's like they've taught me there's not a leaving without something, and it's all okay. It's just okay. And I was so taken with my dad. I think we all were in my family. He was quiet and wise, and he waited to give you advice if you asked. And I gave him a journal. You know, he died in 1987. And in those days, you know, journals were just then being available, blank journals. They weren't before then. And I bought the nicest leather one I could find. And I gave it to him, and I wrote a note in it, and I gave it to him for his birthday, and I said, please write in this. You know so much that I don't know that I'm dying to know. Would you please just write stuff in here? It'll be the greatest treasure of my life. And when he died, I went straight to it. I watched for it every time I was at their home, which had been my home, and I knew where it was, and when he died, I went straight to get it. And he had written on one page. And he said, anything I've ever done, anything I have become, any accomplishment that I have in life is because of your mother. You ought to get to know her. And my mother was 5 on the Enneagram, which is withdrawing and quiet and hesitant. And I ended up with years to get to know her. And I did it. And it was a life lesson for me of whoever you know that you think is great, get to know the other people they know. And get to know the people who have made them what they are. Because that's always the story. It's always the story of community. That whoever you are, you're that because of the community. And so the bigger the community, the wider your understanding becomes of who you could be. Certainly not who you are. But if you're part of something bigger, then you're bigger, right? Than if you're all by yourself.
Please enjoy singing or hearing Silent Night. Please join in saying the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever and ever in the next. Amen. And now our benediction for this evening. Generous and gracious God, we have found compassion in you and are grateful for your presence this night. We are reminded you never leave us alone, that your steadfast love for us never falters. By coming together, we find assurance and comfort that we do not suffer this longest night alone. You have renewed the strength of our hearts. Turn us to reach out to those whose night is also long. Grant that we may be your healing presence in their lives by bringing them your compassion and comfort that will assure them in a loving community healing is found.
He